prison employee Joyce Mitchell helping two convicts escape from a New York maximum security prison.
Ever wondered what happens when the enforcers of the law end up on the other side of those prison bars? Well, buckle up, because we're about to dive into the wild journey of corrupt cops who find themselves in a place they once swore to keep others out of prison. Let's uncover the surprising consequences that await these officers turned inmates. It's a story that could make you question everything you thought you knew about justice. Here are 20 officers who crossed the line and what unfolds once they are incarcerated. Number 20. Tina Gonzalez. Let's dive into the extraordinary case of Tina Gonzalez, a former Fresno County Sheriff's Correction officer whose actions left a trail of shock and disbelief. In December 2019, staff members at Fresno County Jail received a tip that a male inmate was not only in possession of a forbidden cell phone, but also engaged in inappropriate relations with none other than Tina Gonzalez herself. When authorities searched the inmate's cell, their worst fears were confirmed. They discovered the cell phone, and the startling truth unfolded before their eyes. Tina was indeed getting intimate with the inmate. This revelation marked the beginning of a criminal investigation that would send shockwaves through the law enforcement community. Tina Gonzalez faced a litany of charges, including felonies for sexual activity with an inmate, possession of controlled substances and alcohol in jail, and a misdemeanor for possessing a cell phone with the intent to deliver it to an inmate. It was a legal storm of epic proportions. Tina didn't hesitate to resign when her transgressions came to light, but the damage had been done. Assistant Sheriff Steve McComas minced no words, labeling it one of the most disgusting things he had encountered in his 26-year career at the sheriff's office. The facts of the case were beyond belief. Tina had gone to great lengths, even cutting a hole in her pants to facilitate her liaisons with the inmate. These encounters occurred in full view of 11 other inmates, a level of audacity that could only be conceived by, in McComas's words, a depraved mind. But the horror didn't end there. Tina had put not only herself, but also her fellow officers at risk. In addition to the illicit cell phone, she granted the inmate access to razor blades, drugs, and sensitive information. The potential for violence or harm to others was ever present, and it was a ticking time bomb. What truly boggles the mind was Tina's tenacity. Even after being caught and resigning from her job, she continued her relationship with the inmate. Her lack of remorse was glaring, as she persisted in explicit conversations with the inmate and openly boasted about her crimes. As the court proceedings unfolded, Tina remained eerily silent, displaying an apathetic demeanor. Fortunately for her, the judge took some leniency into account. Acknowledging that Tina had no prior criminal record and had reported her crime early, Judge Michael Idiart handed down a sentence of 2,100 days in prison. The defense tried to paint a picture of Tina's crumbling marriage as a backdrop to her actions, arguing that she was in a vulnerable state. While Judge Idiart condemned her actions, he also left a glimmer of hope, believing that people can redeem themselves. Number 19. Gerald John Schaefer Jr. After Gerald John Schaefer was sentenced to life in prison for his gruesome crimes in the 1970s, his life took a dark and chilling turn behind bars. Schaefer was housed with other inmates who were well aware of his heinous acts, and his presence in the prison system was far from uneventful. Within the prison, Schaefer faced constant threats and violence from fellow inmates. He became a target of retribution, as many inmates despised the former sheriff's deputy turned serial killer. They saw him as a symbol of betrayal, a man who had violated the very laws he had once sworn to uphold. Schaefer's reputation made him a vulnerable inmate, and he was subjected to numerous attacks. Schaefer's notoriety extended beyond the prison walls. His case attracted media attention, and he received a fair share of fan mail, much of it disturbingly supportive. Some individuals were inexplicably drawn to his macabre story, and even corresponded with him during his incarceration. It was a grim reminder of the fascination that serial killers often generate in the public eye. Despite the threats and violence he endured, Schaefer managed to survive in prison for almost 2 decades. However, in 1995, His life came to a violent end when he was brutally murdered by a fellow inmate. His death, much like his life, was marked by brutality and darkness. He died at the age of 49 by multiple stab wounds to the face, head, neck, and body. Number 18. Michael Slager. In the tranquil streets of North Charleston, South Carolina, the calm of a routine traffic stop shattered, setting off a chain of events that would reverberate across the nation. Officer Michael Slager, a white police officer, had pulled over Walter Scott, an unarmed African-American man, on a seemingly ordinary day in April 2015. Little did anyone know that their encounter would soon become a symbol of the fraught relationship between law enforcement and the African-American community. As the dashcam video rolled and a bystander's smartphone recorded the scene, it captured the unthinkable. Slager, chasing Scott as he fled, fired multiple shots into his back, leading to Scott's tragic death. The widely disseminated video shocked the nation, sparking a debate on police use of force. Officer Slager's arrest for murder was unusual, as on-duty shootings by police are rarely prosecuted. In December 2016, he pleaded guilty to a federal civil rights violation, acknowledging his excessive force against Walter Scott. He received a 20-year prison sentence, a moment seen as a step towards police accountability. Behind bars, Slager, known for his high-profile case, faced hostility from fellow inmates and spent most of his time in protective custody due to safety concerns. Number 17. Ronell Wilson. Next is a gripping and complex tale that brings together a correction officer, a cop killer, and an unexpected pregnancy. First, we have Ronell Wilson, a name that rings with notoriety due to his chilling act of executing 2 undercover police detectives. His partner in this intriguing drama was Nancy Gonzalez, an officer assigned to Wilson's cell block within the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Inside the prison, their interactions went beyond the professional, stretching into late-night conversations and whispers of them disappearing behind closed doors for extended periods. The story revolves around a secret romance between an inmate named Nancy and a notorious criminal, Ronell Wilson. Nancy became pregnant, leading to legal complications, as inmates can't legally consent to sexual activity. Nancy confessed to having sexual relationships with multiple colleagues. The warden criticized her actions, and Ronell Wilson had a history of violence. The defense portrayed Nancy as a sympathetic figure due to her troubled past, but her actions cast doubt on this narrative. Nancy was sentenced to 1 year and a day in federal prison and lost custody of her child due to substance abuse issues. Number 16. Mohammed Noor. This next story takes us to Minneapolis, where a former police officer named Mohammed Noor found himself at the center of a high-profile case. The story began in 2017 when Noor, a Somali American, and his partner were on a routine patrol when they received a 911 call. Justine Damond, a 40-year-old dual citizen, called the police for help when she heard a possible rape behind her home. Tragically, she was shot and killed by Mohammed Noor, a black police officer who claimed he feared for his life. Initially convicted of third-degree murder, his conviction was later overturned, sparking debates on police accountability. Judge Catherine Quainton sentenced Noor to 57 months in prison, citing his actions that night. This case, alongside George Floyd's, brought about changes in the Minneapolis Police Department and a teenager million settlement for Damon's family. It raised important questions about police accountability and racial dynamics in such cases. Number 15. Vicky White. At the age of 56, Vicky White was on the cusp of retiring from her respected career as a corrections officer in Lauderdale County, Alabama. That was until her life took a startling turn that left many baffled. Colleagues and superiors alike held her in high regard, describing her as a model employee, and even a maternal figure for some. However, her illustrious career took a dark twist when it emerged that she had allegedly masterminded a plan to help an inmate, Casey White, escape from jail. After 11 days on the run, authorities finally located the pair in Evansville, Indiana, with Casey White's capture and a tragic twist. Vicky White was found dead, and it's believed she took her own life. So what led to this dramatic transformation in Vicky White's life? It appears she had developed a special relationship with Casey White, a convicted felon and murder suspect, despite being a widow with no children. This relationship, though not physical, was confirmed through various sources, including inmates and external contacts. Casey White received special privileges in jail due to Vicky White's influence. Their connection began in early 2020 when Casey faced murder charges. Vicky sold her house, made unusual purchases, and started retiring, planning to move to the beach. Her abrupt departure left her family and colleagues shocked. It suggested her suicide was related to avoiding incarceration at the end of her career. This case raises questions about the extent people might go for unexpected connections. Number 14. Wayne Couzens. In a quiet London neighborhood, where safety was often taken for granted, the harrowing story of Wayne Couzens and the tragedy of Sarah Everard unfolded. The tale of a trusted police officer turned villain sent shockwaves through the United Kingdom. Sarah Everard, a young woman walking home on a seemingly ordinary evening, met a fate no one could have foreseen. She vanished without a trace, leaving her family and a nation in turmoil. As the investigation unfolded, Wayne Couzens emerged as the prime suspect, a police officer whose duty was to protect and serve. The subsequent trial brought forth a disturbing narrative. Couzens had used his position of authority to abduct and ultimately murder Sarah Everard. The case became a catalyst for nationwide discussions about women's safety, gender-based violence, and the need for reform within the police force. Convicted of his heinous crimes, Wayne Couzens faced the full weight of the law. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, serving a minimum term of 40 years. His incarceration began a new chapter in his life, one of isolation and reflection, far removed from the uniform he had once worn. Behind prison walls, Couzens would find himself despised by fellow inmates, rejected even among criminals. Number 13. Kim Potter. In the quiet suburb of Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, an unexpected and tragic turn of events unfolded during a seemingly routine traffic stop, thrusting the nation into a whirlwind of controversy and debate. The Kim Potter case, a stark illustration of the consequences of high-stress encounters between law enforcement and citizens, captivated the collective attention of the country. In April 2021, former police officer Kim Potter's actions shook the very foundations of the criminal justice system. In a heart-wrenching error, she reached for her firearm, intending to deploy her taser, but mistakenly discharged her gun, resulting in the loss of Daunte Wright's life, a young black man with a promising future ahead. This shocking incident became the epicenter of an ongoing and fervent discussion surrounding police use of force, the quality of law enforcement training, and the demands for accountability in the face of devastating mistakes. Protests ignited across the nation, calling for justice and reform, as citizens from all walks of life grappled with the profound implications of this tragic mishap. It was a sobering reminder that the lines between life and death can blur even when wielded by those entrusted with maintaining the peace. As the trial of Kim Potter unfolded, it revealed layers of complexity that extended far beyond a simple accident. The case raised crucial questions about how police officers are trained to handle tense situations and the broader issue of police-community relations. The verdict, which ultimately found Potter guilty of first-degree and second-degree manslaughter, served as a pivotal moment in the dialogue about policing, justice, and the pressing need for reform. He was sentenced to 16 months in prison. Number 12. Kowana Jenkins. The Fulton County detention system was thrust into the spotlight with allegations of impropriety and misconduct in a disconcerting turn of events. At the center of this disturbing case is 36-year-old Kowana Jenkins, a former detention officer, who now faces over a dozen charges, including 2 counts of improper sexual contact by an employee, 5 counts of violating the oath of a public officer, and more. The heart of this matter lies in the accusation of Jenkins engaging in inappropriate behavior with an inmate, an accusation that was disturbingly captured on video. Fulton County Sheriff Patrick Labatt, in a press conference that left the community reeling, announced Jenkins's arrest and the litany of charges against her. However, what elevates this case from the realm of legal disputes to public outrage is the fact that it is not an isolated incident within the Fulton County detention system. This incident marks the second time this year that a detention officer has been fired and arrested for misconduct. The initial case in February involved Raynard Trotman, who faced aggravated assault charges for his actions toward an inmate at the Fulton County Jail. The troubling recurrence of such incidents prompts questions about the structural integrity of the detention system itself. What sets this case apart is the concrete video evidence, a record of the alleged misconduct captured on a contraband cell phone during a routine jail shakedown. This compelling evidence left the sheriff with no choice but to terminate Jenkins and bring forward charges. Sheriff Labatt emphasizes that the actions of one individual should not cast a shadow over the dedication and integrity of the majority of employees in the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, who tirelessly serve and protect their community. Number 11. Johannes Mehserle. In the solemn courtroom, the scales of justice tipped in a decisive moment. Johannes Mehserle, a former Bay Area rapid transit officer, remained composed as the jury's pronouncement echoed through the room. Guilty of involuntary manslaughter. His alleged crime? The fatal shooting of Oscar Grant, an unarmed man on a Bay Area rapid transit platform during the early hours of New Year's Day, 2009. The jury deliberated for 7 hours over 2 days, leading to a moment of reckoning for Johannes Mehserle. His emotionless demeanor contrasted with his father's tears in the front row. Oscar Grant's family hoped for justice in a tense courtroom. When the jury announced the verdict, Mehserle was handcuffed and taken into custody, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. Grant's family found the verdict bittersweet. Wanda Johnson, Grant's mother, expressed frustration with the system's limitations and a determination to keep fighting for justice, while the family attorney John Burris saw the verdict as a compromise, falling short of true justice. Number 10. Joyce Mitchell. In the heart of Dannemora, New York, a town overshadowed by the formidable Clinton Correctional Facility, an astonishing saga of audacity and betrayal unfolded in 2015. It all began with Joyce Mitchell, a prison worker whose involvement in a daring escape plot would captivate the nation. Amid the hushed corridors of the maximum security prison, where the clinking of cell doors and the footsteps of inmates created a haunting symphony, Mitchell found herself entangled in a web of forbidden relationships. Her secret ties with inmates Richard Matt and David Sweat would become the epicenter of a gripping drama. Mitchell's role in the escape plot was nothing short of breathtaking. She smuggled tools to the inmates, ingeniously hiding hacksaw blades and chisels within frozen meat. The inmates executed a clever escape plan, using intricate tunnels to reach the outside. They managed to elude capture temporarily in a perilous journey. As news of their audacious escape spread rapidly, a massive manhunt was launched, creating chaos within the prison and instilling fear in the nearby community. When authorities eventually closed in, they discovered Mitchell's involvement, leading to her arrest. After serving a 5-year sentence, Mitchell was released in 2020. She now seeks to rebuild her life and is unlikely to engage in another such daring escapade. Number 9. Gemma Certh. Next, our journey takes us to Wayne County Jail, where we witness a transformation as a prison guard grapples with the repercussions of her actions. Gemma Certh, an officer at St. Clair County Jail, found herself facing serious allegations. She was accused of engaging in sexual activity with a female inmate at her residence in Fort Gratiot. Consequently, she was charged with sexual assault with the intent to commit penetration, potentially subjecting her to a maximum of 10 years behind bars. The inmate developed a fondness for Gemma and inquired if they could maintain contact outside the facility after her release. Although initially hesitant, Gemma eventually shared her phone number, allowing for communication beyond the jail's confines. Gemma's relationship with an inmate began when he requested to shower at her home during work release due to prison facility discomfort. The court viewed her actions as an abuse of power because of the power dynamics involved. Gemma accepted a plea deal, even though she claimed there was no sexual aspect, to avoid a lengthy legal battle and potential solitary confinement. She received a 10-month jail sentence with 4 months suspended upon fine payment and had to register as a sex offender. The judge emphasized her betrayal of trust in the sheriff's department and the legal system. Number 8. Denise Prell. Denise Prell, an ordinary civilian staff member at New York's Clinton Correctional Facility, found herself entangled in a web of intrigue and scandal that could rival a Hollywood thriller. At the age of 39, Prell's life took a dramatic turn when she was arrested on charges that included promoting prison contraband, sexual abuse, and a shocking 23 counts of official misconduct. Her tale of forbidden love and criminal conduct played out against the backdrop of the very prison that had seen one of the most daring and widely publicized escapes in recent history. In June 2015, the world watched in astonishment as inmates Richard Matt and David Sweat broke free from Dannemora prison with the help of a civilian employee, tailor shop supervisor Joyce Mitchell. Mitchell's extramarital affair with one of the fugitives and her audacious smuggling of tools within frozen hamburger meat had inspired a Showtime miniseries. The prison's notoriety still lingered when Prell's actions came to light. She had, like Mitchell, become entangled in an inappropriate relationship with an inmate, ultimately leading to her dismissal from her role as a tailor shop supervisor. Her dismissal triggered a multi-agency criminal investigation involving the state police, the New York State Department of Corrections, the Inspector General's office, and the Clinton County District Attorney's office. Prell's fall from grace culminated with her recent guilty plea, marking the end of her involvement in a real-life prison drama that had gripped the nation. The Dannemora prison, which had once been synonymous with audacious escapes and forbidden passions, had undergone substantial security improvements since that fateful day in 2015 when Matt and Sweat had made their remarkable getaway. Number 7. Tonya Hickbottom. In a jaw-dropping twist, a former nurse who once served at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office 4th Avenue Jail, Tonya Hickbottom, has found herself ensnared in a web of controversy and legal repercussions. Her arrest is the result of shocking allegations that she engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a maximum security inmate, Ramon Cummings. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office launched a rigorous investigation into Hickbottom's activities when suspicions arose regarding her interactions with Cummings. Detectives meticulously monitored telephone conversations between the inmate and Hickbottom, which eventually unveiled a series of startling revelations. During a thorough search of Cummings's cell, law enforcement officers made a startling discovery: a trove of explicit photographs, including one that prominently featured Hickbottom herself. What's more, this bizarre tale took an even more surreal turn when Hickbottom openly admitted to providing these explicit images to another inmate, with the apparent intention of having them conveyed to her incarcerated romantic interest. Adding another layer of complexity to the case, investigators unearthed a financial connection, as Hickbottom had deposited $100 into the inmate's jail account. The situation was further compounded by the fact that Hickbottom was already on thin ice with her employer, having faced a second probationary period due to her struggles in meeting job standards. Her termination was looming, but the allegations of misconduct escalated the matter with astounding speed. In the aftermath of the investigation, Tonya Hickbottom was promptly dismissed from her position. Number 6. Emory Waller. In the quiet town of Hollandale, Mississippi, a chilling burglary case unfolded. It all began one February night when a shrill burglar alarm sounded at 823 Simmons Street. Officers Taylor, Williams, and Maybell rushed to the scene, discovering a shattered back door and an intruder hiding inside. What followed was a chaotic struggle to apprehend the suspect. Amid escalating tensions, Otis Emory Jr. became central to a chaotic situation. A shot was fired. The suspect escaped through a kitchen window, and days later, Emory was arrested and charged with burglary. His trial took a significant turn when, during cross-examination, the prosecutor questioned his silence after arrest, attempting to undermine his credibility. This violated the right to remain silent after receiving Miranda warnings, as established in Doyle v. Ohio, 1976. The Mississippi Supreme Court eventually recognized this error, overturned Emory's conviction, and ordered a new trial, highlighting the importance of upholding legal principles. Now, it's time for today's subscriber pick. Police is your friend is a notion that works in the movies. When police officers find themselves behind bars, they sometimes find themselves in a pretty dangerous situation, with a target on their backs. Some of them get incarcerated along with criminals they had away during their good cop days, while others have to face the consequences of the dirty deals they dipped their hands in, before the long arms of the law caught up with them. Incarcerated females cops are sometimes victims of sexual harassment and assault. This is because of the stereotypical image many criminals have of cops. On the outside, they may be untouchable, but on the inside, the felons make their own rules. This image speaks volumes of what happens to corrupt cops who end up in prison. However, we can only depend on stories that eventually find their way out. Either ways, it must be really horrific for them, as angry convicts will have the opportunity to take it out on them. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know below in the comments section. Number 5. Gennady Mikosevich. Gennady Mikosevich's story is a chilling descent into the depths of darkness. Born in 1947 in the peaceful village of Ist, he initially appeared to be a typical young man. He served in the army and had dreams of a normal life. However, his life took a horrifying turn in 1971 when he committed his first murder. Mikosevich's gruesome killing spree began after a heartbreaking revelation. His girlfriend had left him and married another while he was away serving in the army. On a desolate night in May 1971, he contemplated suicide, carrying a noose with him. But fate intervened when he crossed paths with an innocent young woman on the road. Tragically, he chose to vent his anguish by taking her life. Over the years, Mikosevich's reign of terror continued, often coupled with sexual assault. A man committed heinous acts using bizarre methods, maintaining an outward facade as a family man, worker, and Communist Party member. In the 1980s, investigator Nikolai Ignatovich connected female murders to a single serial killer through a red Zaporozhets. The killer, who ironically volunteered with the police, was caught in 1985 through handwriting analysis, revealing police inadequacies. Sadly, 14 innocent people had been wrongly convicted for his crimes. His execution in 1 million exposed justice system failures in the Vitebsk case. Number 4. Flores Valdo de Oliveira. Flores Valdo de Oliveira, better known as Cabo Bruno, carved his name into the darkest chapters of Brazilian crime history during the 1980s. This former military police officer turned serial killer terrorized the outskirts of São Paulo, leaving a trail of horror and mystery in his wake. Cabo Bruno had humble origins, stemming from a childhood comparison to a local alcoholic named Bruno, a name even his own mother embraced. Yet behind this seemingly innocuous alias lay a cold-blooded killer who would go on to be labeled as one of the most controversial characters in the police chronicle. His motives remained as mysterious as his crimes. Cabo Bruno initially confessed to over 50 murders, but later recanted during his trial. Some thought he was a vigilante, while others believed his motives were erratic. He often struck in the Jabaquara district, creating fear among residents, especially traders. His ever-changing vehicle colors added to his elusive nature. After a complex legal battle, he received a 113-year prison sentence, but requested transfer to a semi-open prison in 2009, which was denied. In 2012, he was granted freedom after 27 years behind bars, but was tragically gunned down a month later in Pindamonhangaba after a religious service. Number 3. Richard Daniel Johnson. This heart-wrenching case shook the city of Richmond. The fate of Richmond police officer Richard Daniel Johnson has been sealed with a conviction for involuntary manslaughter. The jury, consisting of 12 members, reached a unanimous verdict after just over 2 hours of deliberation, ending a trial that unfolded with emotional testimony and compelling evidence. The tragic incident occurred on the night of April 7, 2022, when Johnson and trainee officer Dequan Walker were responding to a burglary call as backup officers. Johnson was behind the wheel, driving at a staggering 60 miles in a 35-mile zone. It was at the intersection of Bells and Castlewood roads that their paths tragically intersected with two young lives, Jeremiah Ruffin, 18, and Tracy Williams, 19, who lost their lives that night. The evidence presented in court included video footage of the incident, vehicle data from both cars, and expert witness statements from fellow law enforcement officers. The trial was an emotionally charged affair, with Johnson taking the stand and acting police chief Rick Edwards present during the proceedings. The verdict, while delivering justice for the victims, also underscored the profound loss experienced by all three families involved. Richmond Commonwealth Attorney Colette McEachin expressed the tragedy of the situation, emphasizing that this was not a victory, but a painful reminder of the devastation wrought upon these families. The defense contended that Johnson's view was obstructed, and he never saw the teen's car at the intersection while attempting to assist fellow officers at the burglary call. Number 2. Theodore Dyer. Theodore Dyer was convicted and sentenced to life in prison in December 2013 for first-degree criminal sexual assault on a 9-year-old girl. This disturbing crime is what led to his incarceration. Dyer's conviction was a result of his actions in that case, which involved the assault of a young child, leading to his life sentence. The nature of his crime and the severity of the charges are crucial factors in understanding the context of the incident that ultimately led to his death in prison. The case involving Theodore Dyer and his cellmate, Stephen Sanderson, is a troubling and tragic incident within the prison system. Dyer was sentenced to life for a heinous crime, while Sanderson took it upon himself to end Dyer's life due to the nature of his crimes. This raises complex questions about whether such vigilante justice is justifiable and highlights concerns about due process, inmate safety, and the role of the legal system in prisons. Number 1. Bradley Stewart Wagner. In a scandal that shook the Anaheim Police Department and raised eyebrows across the region, Bradley Stewart Wagner, a 34-year veteran officer, finally faced sentencing in December for his appalling actions. Wagner, often labeled the Dirty Anaheim Cop, had exploited his position to commit violent sexual assaults on 3 women he believed to be illegal immigrants in the vicinity of Disneyland. Despite his sentencing to a 4-year prison term, Wagner managed to avoid being incarcerated in a California prison, a feat that left both officials and the public perplexed. The reasons for this apparent special treatment were undisclosed, and his official criminal record offered no insights into this enigma. Following his sentencing, Wagner and his wife embarked on a crusade to challenge his conviction. He now vehemently denies his guilt, accusing his victims of deceit, alleging foul play by police investigators, and criticizing his former defense team's competence and integrity. Wagner's claims of innocence echo loudly, while he desperately seeks release on bail, painting himself as an ailing and unstable man, worrying about the impact of incarceration on his health. In the midst of this legal quagmire, Deputy District Attorney Linda Fernandez remains resolute, emphasizing that Wagner's relentless filing of motions aims at escaping the inevitable. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.